The most successful people in the world all have one thing in common. They've learned how to think big by developing a perspective of possibility. And the good news is, we all have the potential to apply the same strategies to achieve amazing things in our work and lives. Hi, I'm Rob Hartnett, and as your Chief Possibility Officer and host, I'm here to inspire you to become the star of your world as a person of possibility, through learning how people from all areas of life are thinking big and chasing down their dreams. And I'm super excited because I'm going to bring you one of those people today. I'm bringing you the amazing, the talented, the great photographer, the marathon runner, the financial expert and whiz, Mark Zaglas. Welcome, Mark.
G'day, Rob. I haven't heard an introduction like that on myself, man. My mum is going to be really pleased to hear this.
Well, she sent it in, mate. I've got to tell you, I did speak to her, and she said, "Could you do this for me?" I'm a little embarrassed. Much better coming from a third party. So I said, "No problem at all. Here's the bank account number." So no, she did it. So Mrs. Zaglas, thank you very much for the intro for Mark. Now, mate, let's a bit of background. Let's back up the horse a little bit here. You and I met really through business. We worked, we were doing some work together through the NAB group at the time, and you were, I just think, one of the most, and I still believe you're one of the most dynamic sales professionals, and you also have a huge amount of care for your customers and the businesses you work with. And that's sort of where we came across, and then we found out we had this sort of common interest in sport and high performance, and then photography as well, which maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And I think the catalyst for me has always been wanting to. I think when you and I ever met for a coffee, I always felt, man, I should be recording this. There was always such gold when you and I caught up. You'd agree with that?
Yeah, I wish too, man. It's been a little while since we have caught up, but I really enjoyed and got a lot of energy from our conversations. Your background and your diversity and your ability to just really simplify things inspired me to really think about how I did things. So I couldn't agree more, and I've been really looking forward to this conversation with you, Rob.
Yeah, great, Mark. Well, we've got the record button on. We just double-checked that, so it's all good. Now, what really was the catalyst for me was you and I, we were connected on Facebook, and so I've been following your extracurricular activities through that as well. But what got me was the Ultramarathons. And you wrote this really, really, I think, from the heart piece about one of the latest ones you did do, but there were so many good elements to it. And I thought, wow, I really want to share this with the audience because there was some great stuff about mindset and about physiology and the connection between both. So that's kind of where I thought, you know what, we've got to do this thing and we're going to make it happen. So one of the things that you always talk to your clients about, and I've always noticed this in you, before you deep dive into the financials, you always want to know what's someone's why, like why are they in business, what their purpose is. So I throw that back at you. What's your why for doing the ultra marathons? How did you get into that?
That is a really good question, Rob, and depending upon the day would probably give you different answers. It's been a 20-year career now, but look, if I'm being honest with you, what got me started 20 years ago was I thought that running would just help me to lose the extra weight I was carrying.
Yeah.
And so there was a little bit of, I guess, physicality and maybe a bit of vanity and a bit of health and a few different other things mixed up in it. It absolutely coincided with I do enjoy adventures and challenges, and this concept of running through the wall in a marathon. Back in 2005, running long distance wasn't really a thing. And so there wasn't really a lot of people to talk to. But I think for me, it was definitely a case of, God, if I ever can do a marathon, I'm going to lose this weight that I'm carrying.
Right.
And then it was, I wonder what it's like to run through this wall that everybody talks about at the 35K mark. So those were the two prevailing thoughts at the time.
Right. So it's really actually quite funny because I don't know if you've heard of the actor Bryan Cranston, who was in a number of huge movies, and he was in Breaking Bad, which was a big, most mainstream one. But he was a New York marathon runner, and he used to go down and watch it and go, "They're idiots." And then someone said, well, what are they doing it for? And he kind of got into the why and then realized, oh, actually, they're not idiots. Actually, I reckon I could do it. And then he got into it. Lose a bit of weight was his kind of original reason, but then started to find out that he actually could do it and kind of loved it as well. So sometimes we do things, and that's why I always say that passion comes after activity, never the other way around. You got to do something to realize whether you're passionate about it. You can't just go, oh, I reckon I'm passionate about marathon running. I've been watching it for years, right? You've got to actually do it. And I think that's really fascinating for you. It came from a probably different place than where it is now from the attraction to it. So you got into it from as you said, lose a bit of weight, keep yourself more healthy. But then it's obviously transcended because you've now gone into going through that wall or going through longer and longer marathons.
Yeah, Rob, I really agree with you. Passion comes after. There's many things that we explore in life. We're here talking about something that I love doing and have become reasonable at it. But there's plenty of other things I've tried and, people try and you go, not for me.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I fell into running by accident. I was not a runner, couldn't run. My childhood is littered with a lot of trauma from little athletics. I couldn't jump, I couldn't throw, and I couldn't run. And really, at the age of 30, I had believed that running is not for me and the body wasn't meant to move. Fast forward to today, we are born to run.
Yes.
And it's the most exhilarating, freedom giving thing that I certainly do, that you can get up and you can go and move, whether it's a walking pace or a sprinting pace, it doesn't matter. If you run 100 meters or 100 miles, you're a runner in my book. And I didn't really fully understand that at the beginning. But fast forward to today, I don't care about distance, time, place, anything like that. If you move and you're moving 100 meters or 1 kilometer, if that's your pushing your boundary, then more power to you. And so for me, it became about just pushing those boundaries and seeing how far I could push myself mentally and spiritually and emotionally and physically, to find out where those boundaries are. And as of last December, that was 140 kilometers, and I still don't know where they are.
Hey, I just take you back because it was a nice intersection to where I want to talk about the ultras. But you made a really interesting point there, and I'm going to give you a bit of science behind this because you're right about a philosophy. When I was in the ad agency business, I was working for Mojo, one of Australia's great creative houses, and we're working with Nike, and we're working on the relaunch of Nike Women, the women's brand. And one of the things we did lots and lots of focus groups. There were some good outcomes from that. But we had this view that women would think, athletic, good looking women, athletic, doing lots of sports, doing marathons, doing all that kind of stuff would be the big vision. And what it actually boiled down to was none of that. We were completely wrong. What it boiled down to was women said, just pulling on a pair of sneakers, I feel like I'm on the way. And it's like you said, like they said, sometimes it might be a 5K run, sometimes it might be just going down to the milk bar to do shopping, but instead of taking my car, I walked. And so we actually ended up coming with a tagline, removed all that high performance, removed all the aspiration. And actually the tagline that really worked was Nike Women, begin the journey. So begin the journey became the entire tagline. And it totally resonated. It just felt, I can be anyone, but as long as I put my sneakers on and I keep them somewhere where it's really easy for me to put them on, I'm beginning the journey towards health. And I love what you just said then, because you didn't know that story, but you didn't know that white focus group. We did. You just nailed it, right? It's not about whether it's 100 meters, 200 meters, 5K, 10K, or as you're talking about now, 140. It's all power to someone who goes, you know what, I'm going to move. And if I haven't moved before, someone moving for the first time is glorious, in my view.
I love that, Rob, and I love when you can bring the science to the art. So I think both of those are two sides of the same coin, and one can fuel the other. That reminds me of, one of the things that I've learned. I've got the 5-minute rule when it comes to my training. There's plenty of times, probably more often than not, where you just don't feel like going out and doing that training session. But if you can just put on the runners, if you can just get out the door and go for 5 minutes, and if you still don't feel like it, fine, stop.
Yes.
But more often than not, you find that you push through whatever was holding you back and you then get the session done. That then becomes self-fulfilling and motivating. And I think to what you said before, passion comes after movement, and I think motivation comes after that.
Yes.
And so, I've learned that, you've just, the intentionality is actually the muscle to work.
Yeah.
And the more you work that, the stronger in the discipline muscle you become. And that's only just something I've learned in the last year or two, listening to Andrew Huberman, just how that the discipline is a muscle, just like
Yes, yeah.
muscle.
It's like accountability. I mean, I do more cycling than I do running. For cycling for me was a bit like running. Like I did running, I was like, yeah, I can do it, I'll move it. But and my passion, no, not so much as I was about cycling, which I didn't know because I really wasn't a cyclist. But I've got into that, and you're exactly right. If you just get your stuff on, you get out, you clip in, you go on, suddenly endorphins kick in, and you're right. But I love that 5 minute rule. That's a really cool thing. So let's talk about now this ultra marathon. So you were talking about this run. Oh, it was 140K. It's through the day, through the night at Mount Kosciuszko.
Yes.
What's it called? How did you get involved?
Yeah, okay. So it's called Ultra Trail Kosciuszko. And these are the bigger runs on the circuit these days. They do get bigger,
Right.
which is a whole other story. So this is called the miler, which
Right.
represents 100 miles or
Yes.
160 kilometers. When we started, the race was 160 kilometers. But as we'll get into the story, you never know what's going to come at you. And running in the mountains, you will get every sort of weather condition. And on this particular day, last year in December, we got everything except, I would say, a hurricane. Um, so it was in the snowy mountains. We started in Jindabyne at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
And people say, well, where did you go? And I say, well, it was 140 kilometers. So everywhere.
So everywhere. Yeah.
Charlotte Pass, Perisher, Thredbo, Kosciuszko, Guthiga, Power
Right.
Station. It was a 140 kilometer, I guess, running, walking, eating tour of the snowy mountains.
Now, when did
And
you, tell me back one step though, when did you decide to do it? Like, and what was your training lead up to when you decided to go, you know what, I'm doing it? Like, was it some friends who said to you, let's do it? Or you just decided, I'm going to do it? Or you got a bunch of guys and girls around you? How did that all happen?
yeah, look, Rob, for that, I got to probably take you back. My running journey or career has, started with I just want to try 5K, and then it was 10K, then it was a half marathon, then it was a marathon. It was like, oh, that's cool. I'm loving all of the discipline and the training, the endorphins and the adventure and the challenge and the heartache and all of that. I want more. So I went to triathlon, Olympic distance up to Ironman
Yeah.
distance. And then it was like, oh, what's next? Oh, trail running. Okay,
That's next.
50K,
Yeah.
80K, 100K. And then it was, okay, I've done the 100K. But in the back of my mind, I think for probably 10 years plus, I've always had in the back of my mind, I really want to see what happens when you exhaust everything mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And from the earliest days, I just remember these crazy ultra runners talking about your world and life changes at 120K.
Ah, okay.
And I just went, I've got to go experience that.
Right.
And there's something quite, I want to say poetic, but it's something that is quite primal about the fact that nobody can help you do that.
Yes, it's
We'll get
totally
into
you, isn't
another
it?
yeah, we'll get into a concept of there's a team and a support, but only you can put one foot in front of the other and get yourself out to that distance.
Right.
And you've only got what you've got. There isn't, if you're doing a bike ride, there's a piece of machinery that
Yes.
could break, that
Yep.
could, it's just you. It's just you. And I think that has stayed with me for years. And no matter whether I was doing road running or triathlons or any other sports, there was always something there. It was like, yeah, but you really want to go and figure out what this is like.
Yeah. So it's a real drive, internal drive, isn't it? And a real passion to, really push and get past that boundary. But I think also you hang out with people who've been there before. I think that's a really interesting point. So you're hanging out with people who've been where you want to go, and you're hearing their stories. And of course, hearing that one, hey, 120K, your life changes. It's pretty
Yeah.
compelling, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think you've just hit on a really important point there, I think, Rob, which in all walks of life, whether it's business, life, athletic pursuit, or what have you, if you surround yourself with people who have been there, or have done it, or are certainly, they can, that inspires, they offer advice. it's that thing, you can't be what you can't see,
Yes.
right? And it's kind of like your journey is going to be your journey, right?
Yep.
And everybody will do it in their own way and their own style and for their own reasons. But yeah, I've always sought out, great people like yourself to talk to that goes, oh yeah, actually I could do that, and I'll bring that into my business world. Or um, like I said, I I never ever describe myself as an athlete or a runner or anything like that, despite being in at different athletics all my life. And in fact, I've probably only come to accept myself as a runner in the last 5 years, despite
Right.
all of the different runs that I've been doing. So it's been a really interesting journey. It's as much inward as it is outward.
So what was the training lead up to this one? What did you decide to do? Because you knew it was long and you knew it was probably going to be pretty tough, which I think it was. What's the, give me a flavour of what you're doing on a weekly basis from a training perspective?
Yeah, most people would go, "Oh my God, you must be running forever." And I guess that's true in one sense. I'd say 10 to 15 hours a week running.
Right.
What isn't well known or understood is probably then there is another 5 or 6 hours of strength and recovery work. And I'd
Mm.
say there's the fundamental difference between marathons at, anywhere up to 42K and going beyond that is actually strength work.
Right.
Running hills or being in the gym and doing the recovery, particularly at 52.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago constantly getting injured and saying to my coach, I don't understand, Bruce. I'm doing everything I've always done. I'm getting injured. And he goes, yeah, Mark, you're nearly 50 and we need to be doing some different things, getting
Yes.
the body strong. And so my number one realization learning now from making a bunch of mistakes is how important strength muscle is, not just to running, but
Mm.
just to longevity in life.
Mark, you've just hit on a great point. I'm literally after I finish this podcast with you going into to see to one of the I guess it's one of a doctor in a clinic to get what I call a BHP or PHP. I call it PHP, which is a blood plasma injection because I've torn two tendons and I have never torn tendons. And I'm at an age too where I've just got back into competitive yacht racing, and it turned out that I hadn't done that for about 3 years or so, and I've overdone it, and I'm really really frustrated because I haven't been able to sail for 6 weeks. But I've realised that I need to do more strength training now than I have done before, and I've gone, this never happened before, and I'm blah blah blah. I'm like what's going on? And I've realised that actually the strength training is as important as the actual sailing and the skills drills that I'm doing. In fact, more so now because I can't actually do the skills drills. And it's actually cost me going to a world championship now because I can't get there because I can't practice enough by the time this is all cured. So I've just, so I completely agree with where you're coming from. That as we get older, our training needs to shift, doesn't it? It needs to train. We can't train like we were when we were 30 or 40.
Look, yeah, Rob, I'm running better at 50 than I was at 40,
Right.
no
Yeah.
question, purely because of that. Now, certainly my running technique and all of that has definitely improved, but and I think the cross training element of my training, doing a lot of cycling with the running, takes a lot of the load off. And so
Yes.
I often get the question, how are your knees? And I go, they are amazing, like never an issue. But I think that that's a lot to do with the fact that many years ago I retrained myself to run properly. And
Right.
it's quite funny. We're taught to swim, we're taught to cycle, we're
Yeah.
taught a lot of things, but we're never ever trained to run
To run
properly.
properly. Yeah. Isn't that a great
you
point?
know. And the introduction of the running shoe from the Converse through to the first running shoe, there's actually a great study in the book Born to Run, which correlates running injuries with the introduction of the running shoe, that the more cushioning
Yes.
just encouraged a poor running technique to land on
Right.
the heel. And so that sort of heel striking is what sends the shockwaves through the body. So there's once you kind of put together technique and the strength training and then once you get past a certain sort of fitness level with running, it's like being in the, I imagine what it'd be like for sailing when the wind picks up and it catches the sail and you're just away.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's effortless.
Mm.
When I'm really running well, it feels free and it feels effortless. Um, but the only way to do that is to put the work in the gym, in the kitchen, eating well,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
doing recovery work, the boring stuff, all those
yes,
1%ers that you hear professional athletes talk about, whether you're at the Olympics or you're a punter like me,
yeah.
just got to do the basics and you've got to do them well.
Yeah, you do, and I like your thinking on the cross training as well, because that's something that came up in a really good book written on sort of, I think it's around kind of the idea is it's a book of it's cycling past 50. It's kind of like that. That's the concept. But the guy's he's a bike fitter, so he fits pros and people like that to their bike. So they get the bike fit right, which is incredibly important. And one of the things he's talked about was the importance of cross training. He said, stop riding a freaking bike all the time. And he said, most of the weekend warriors he comes across spend more time on their bike than the guys on the pro circuit, right?
Mm.
And those guys on the
Yeah.
pro circuit ride their bikes a lot, but he said they do a lot of cross training. And he said that you've got to do the cross training. So I started the bike, that's how I got back into sailing a bit, to sort of take it a little bit off the bike. And now I'm sort of doing both. And I really like your ways. Your knees are good because you've got really good running technique, but you're also right at your riding. So you're getting this nice balance of cross training. I think the body needs that. I think that's really smart. So let's get back to this one. You're all ready to go. One thing I want to talk about. You talked about the physical training. You talked about the food and the intake. Did you do any mental training for this one? And if so, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, yes is the answer to that. And I think that it's something that you can't build up overnight. So I definitely think going through the gears over the years had built the mental toughness.
Right.
So ultra runners will talk about the pain cave. And look, once you get beyond, it's different for everyone, but let's call it the 35, 40 kilometer mark,
Yeah.
it becomes less physical and more mental.
Right.
And there are I call them Jedi mind tricks and toolkits that I've built up over the years of how do you get yourself through the the pain points that just pop up out of nowhere. It could be a niggle, it could be the gut has shut down and you're not taking on fuel. You've you've become a bit delirious and you haven't fueled right, so you're now dehydrated, or you got lack of salts, or you've rolled an ankle, or you just the body's going, what are we doing? So there's so
That's right.
much. The mind goes into so many different places, and you are constantly training that on your long runs. Your long
Right.
run every Saturday, Sunday morning
Yeah.
is less about training the physicality of the long run. It is
Right.
your going out there training your nutrition and training your mental toolkit. And you got to put yourself in situations where you kind of almost digging new rooms in the pain cave
Right.
and learning new tips and tricks. So one of them, I'll tell you this, what I did. I make up an event for my birthday every year. And last year, as preparation for this event, I undertook the David Goggins 4x4x48 challenge, which is to run 4 miles, 6.5 kilometers
Yeah.
every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Wow. That's intense.
And basically, so sleep.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So you go out there to run the 6.5 kilometers, takes you about 45, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Then you've got another 3 hours plus to wait for the next time. And you're doing that every 4 hours for 48 hours. I did that specifically to practice, prepare for mentally,
Right.
not sleeping for 48
Yeah.
hours
Yeah.
and having to restart every 4 hours.
Right. Right.
That's a mental trip.
100%. That's a really good strategy and prep. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I'm just thinking through that and that kind of, and really how you were testing your mind, because you made this really interesting point, which I really resonated with me. You said that the body can go a lot further than the mind thinks it can. Along those lines, like you said, the body's got way more capability than the mind. You're fighting your mind most of the time, not the body. And once you can kind of overcome that, it can change things.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
interesting, and I think that 48 hours would definitely be a prep for doing that.
That was something that I learned throughout last year's training. And here I am at 50, having done this for 20 years, and you're still learning, right? So
Right.
I've really had to, drop my ego around this and go, geez, man, running long, it really teaches you that you're always a beginner.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and I learned on in that 4448 that we have more capacity than we realize,
Right.
and that we're only limited by our beliefs. Yes, there's physicality. Yes, there is training, but that's all within control. Then
Yes.
it's the mind, but it's not just the mind. I get asked a lot, and fair enough too. Oh my God, how do you do a marathon? How do you do 100 kilometers?
Mm.
And my answer is quite simple today. That's not the hard part. That's the fun part. That's
Right.
the reward. The hard part is getting up every single day at 4 a.m., doing the training every day, rain, hail, or shine,
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to work, living your life, recovering, getting up the next day, doing that for
Yes.
16, 18 weeks. That's the hard part.
That's super hard. That is really, yeah. No, I totally can associate with, you do it for a week, but doing it week after week, day after day, week after week, that's the really intense part. The reward, it's a great point of saying. In fact, the reward is the event, isn't it really? I mean, you've got to the event. The reward is being able to do the event. Hey, one thing I wanted to catch up was chat about a little bit. Another part in doing the ultra was when you said you were kind of like obviously going through your mind. You're just about beat. I couldn't run. I was walking, and you had someone come past you and go, "Hey, would you like to run together?" And you were like, "Shit, yeah." Tell me about that, because I thought that, and then you went on. And I thought that was a really important part about partners, but also that person saying that to you and your reactions. If you remember that, can you take us through it?
Oh, Rob, that'd be something I'll never forget for my entire life. If I could just go back
Mm.
to get to that, um, to put it into context, uh, I'd been going, the event now had been going, I was probably at probably at the 80, 90 kilometer mark.
Yep.
Coming up to 100K, it's sort of 15, 16 hours into
Right.
the event.
Yep.
What I didn't mention before around the weather conditions, we got hit with a lightning storm, which pulled us off the course
Right.
for 2 hours. And we got back on, and that's what shortened the race from 160 to 140. So that's a whole different dealing with adversity.
Yep.
But now we did the last 15, 16 hours of the event in just thundering rain.
Right.
And
God.
so you're 15 hours in, your stomach's not working. I couldn't consume food. So you're just losing the energy, and which is dropping your pace. You're going through mud. It's raining. It's dark. It's cold. You're in the mountains.
Yep.
By this stage, 300 people had started, but only 140 of us had remained. You're not seeing anyone.
Yeah.
You're in the mountains. You don't see anyone. It's dark. It's wet. It's cold, and you're fighting your mind not to go to, um, I wouldn't say dark places, but certainly unhelpful places.
Right.
You're hearing things. You're
Right.
going, and nobody's there, and you're questioning life choices, Rob. I'm going,
Yes.
what are you doing out here? Just stop at the checkpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been so this is like about 5 p.m. I'm imagining too. So if you start at 15 hours, sort of 5 p.m., 6 p.m. At
Yep.
night, which is in the same day. It's kind of getting towards the end of day, typical end of day, as
Yeah.
well.
And your mind is, well, I'm 80, 90K in, but I'm still 50, 60K from the finish. Like you're nowhere. You're in
Yeah.
the middle of no man's land. And so that was I mean, looking back, a fascinating, interesting experience. But I could tell you in the moment, it was hard, man. I struggled. I struggled. I mean, physically you're struggling, but you're used to that. This,
Mm.
this was a depth. This was a depth that I had never, ever, ever had to dig into.
Right.
Physically, I'd never had to go there, but I'm okay with that. But mentally and emotionally, I hadn't had to go there. And
Yeah.
so now you're starting to question yourself, and then this woman, Jasmine is her name. I reckon she's a guardian angel, man. She just came up alongside of me and she said, "Hi, do you mind if we run together but don't talk?"
Right.
And I just said, "God love you, yes."
Yes, yes.
And we never intended to run the rest of the race together. In fact, she was running way better than I was.
Yeah.
And so, golden rule in trail running, if unless someone is injured, right, you just run your own race. But long story short, we left the next checkpoint just coincidentally at the same time, and from there on, we just ran together. And I reckon that was for probably about 8 or 9 hours over 50,
Wow,
60K.
really? Yeah.
And I reckon we maybe spoke in total for 20 minutes over that entire time. But there is only one other person on the face of the planet. There's 8 billion people.
Yeah.
And Rob, there's only one other person on the face of the planet that knows exactly what I was going through at that time, and that's her, and vice versa. We bore
Yes.
witness,
Yes.
and so, we won't ever. I don't think we'll ever speak to each other again. Who knows? Like, but it was.
So to clarify, so she wasn't a running partner of yours or anything. You just kind of
She
basically
was just
connected. It's that's even crazier than I thought. Wow.
never didn't we've never spoke before, and we haven't spoken since. But we shared some moments
Yeah.
out there where like and a lot of it's unspoken. It's like
Sure.
I know what you're going through, and she
Yeah.
knew what I was going through, and it was kind of like if you can do it, I can do it, and vice versa. And it really just reinforced. We've all heard the adage, if you
Mm.
want to go fast, go alone. If you want to
Yeah.
go far, go together.
Yeah.
And I mean, boy, did that become real.
Yeah, well, that adage is complete crap when you think about cycling because you actually go fast and further together. So I've always, so that one makes make any sense at all to me. It might be from lone wolf entrepreneurs who think that, and even that's not true because we all know they've got a team, as you and I both know. So I'm not sure whoever came up with that, but I could dispel it 10,000 times if I wanted to. But I love that fact that you guys just kind of connected up because it actually goes back to a really primal thing. I was chatting to a guy called Nick Boothman many years ago, who's a communications specialist and author. He used to be, you love him, he used to be a photographer for models, and he told me that, when we're born with three things: curiosity, right, enthusiasm, and empathy. And so
Okay.
you guys running like that was pure empathy, right? It's like, because you didn't need to speak, you didn't talk, but there was
Yeah.
empathy in terms of what you're going through, what she was going through, and no words needed to be said. But there might have been a slightly slowing up of pace. There might have been acceleration. There might have been, it's just that watching over each other. You said a guardian angel. I'm sure you were the same for her as well. So it's fascinating. So I've got to ask you though, did the 120K, when you got to the 120K, did your life change?
Uh, look, that's a really good question. I'd probably balk at this was life changing, that was life changing.
Yeah,
Uh, the short answer is uh, I had a wealth of experience that I'd never ever had before throughout the entire leading up to the event, but through the entire event.
yeah,
And so, but yes is the answer. Like I got beyond 100 and still had a marathon to go.
yes,
It, it, it I like I said, I had never ever been stripped so bare.
right,
You're soaked. It's cold. It's dark. You're in the middle of the night. It's 2 a.m. in the morning, and your body's going, "We should be asleep."
yes,
And you're hearing things, and um, you're kind of diving into your toolkit, and you're going, "I got nothing left." And I can only imagine, and this is I could only imagine, and then I don't think I could. My life's not under threat,
yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So there's a whole other world that,
Yeah, I
but
think the point
so
though, I think it did. I mean, I asked that question, but I know it changed you because of what you just told me. But also, I think that it changes you because whether it was 100K or 120K, it's a bit like when when the pandemic came, and we all struggled because we hadn't been there before. And for you,
mm,
you hadn't been there. You said to me, I looked in the toolkit and the toolkit was empty, right? The toolbox, it emptied my toolbox. It was all used up. I think that's the life-changing part where you went, God, you know what? I actually haven't done this, but now I have. So now I've got some stuff for the toolkit. And I think that's potentially what they meant when they were talking about it's life-changing because you've emptied the toolkit. You didn't have anything. You used all that great stuff up to about 100 or 120K, whatever it happens to be. I'm sure it varies for different people. But that's, yeah, I think that's really interesting. It definitely changed for you because you just talked about that great story. Um, that meant when you ran, was it Jessica, was it her name you ran with?
Yes,
Yeah,
Jasmine.
Jasmine. Sorry, when you ran with Jasmine, I think that was that's life changing. Yeah, that one, and you said I never forget it ever because it was a key point. So I think that's probably an interesting part. But tell me, so what did you end up at? So was it 140 k's? Was the end?
Yeah, it ended up being about 140 kilometers.
Yeah,
Like I said, I think that in many ways it was a unique experience because normally these runs are 160
right.
and it's well planned and you know the course and all of that type of thing. But definitely having to deal with the as we're approaching the 50-kilometer checkpoint,
Yes,
the message comes through on the phone that the lightning storm has come up onto Mount Kosciuszko. You're going to be held at the next checkpoint.
right,
At that point, you don't know whether you're going to be there for 5 minutes, 5 hours, or the whole thing's called off.
right.
And so you are having to now deal with something that you had not prepared for.
Yeah,
And that in and of itself was a really interesting moment of, okay, Mark, but you have dealt with adversity. Slow things down, control what you can control, use this opportunity, refuel, attend to any niggles. I had some blisters, take care of it. I had my teammates, my crew there,
right.
you know, and then that was a really interesting thing when they put us back on. And I remember texting my best friend while we were waiting, and she was saying, "Oh, how do you feel if it's like it's 140, it's not 160?" And I said, really interesting, without even really thinking. I said, that doesn't worry me.
Yeah,
I said, I'm going beyond 100. If
yeah,
it's 101 or 100, it's still out there, right?
yeah.
So whereas I would have thought I would have been really upset by not doing
Mm,
160.
right.
And I
You'd
think
got
that
past where you wanted to go. Your next bit, no matter it was 140 or 160, you were still going.
I think it reinforced to me, it probably brought to my conscious something that's been in my subconscious, Rob. If I do all I can do within my control, I can live with that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point.
I can live with that. Which takes me, I had a crack at this event a year ago, and my first time ever in 20 years, I didn't finish. Um, and I didn't finish based on I started the 100 miler, 160K, and 10K in, my quads cramped.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When I say cramped, they locked.
Locked. Yeah. The
They
safe.
locked.
Yeah.
And I was at the top of Eagle's Nest and I had a 3 kilometer descent. And if anybody knows that your quad muscles is what you need to descend. And so it took me the most excruciating amount of pain to get down, and I thought I could unlock them. Well, 60 kilometers and 13 hours later, they still hadn't unlocked, and I got timed out.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that would just kill me. But again, there's a difference between having to stop and quitting.
Yeah.
And I was, in fact, just as proud of continuing on then and getting to 60K as I was of crossing the 140.
Right.
In two different situations.
Yeah.
And I think that fueled me and prepared me. That adversity or that disappointment of a year
Yeah.
before, that put more tools in the toolkit that I never would have had for this one. And
Yeah.
someone said to me, you don't always get what you think you deserve, but you always get what you need. And
Yes.
I got what I needed then. It just took a year for it to pay back.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a very good point. And yeah, you were timed out. Not that you weren't prepared to go on, but you'd got to a point. But again, you had more stuff in the toolkit. You had more learnings for the next one. Yeah, I was going to ask you whether you'd done one before. Are you going to do another one? That's the question I've got for you now.
I'm going to keep going. I mean,
Yeah.
the sort of yes is the answer to that. They'll take different forms. The ultra running community, Rob, has gone from being, 3 people and a dog
Yeah.
to a mainstream thing.
Wow.
And so 100 miles or this 160 event used to be the longest, right?
Yeah.
They now go 200 and 300 miles.
Wow,
There's multiple
man.
days. It's become a thing now.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll just keep, I want to run a marathon in every decade of my life. Um, and I want to be able to run, whether that's 100K or 10K or 1K
yeah.
every year of my life. Um,
It's
yeah.
a really good point. I was speaking to a marathon runner friend of mine. She's listening to this. She'll know who it is, and she's in New Zealand. She does a lot of running. And I said to her, "How?" We were talking about the injury I've got, and she said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I've had that. I've had that treatment like 3 or 4 times." And she goes, "Oh, it really works. You should do it." She's actually the catalyst for me doing it. And she said, "You know what? You got to do when you want to keep doing stuff as you get older. You just got to find doctors and medical people who get you." Because you'll come up once, she said she had one doctor who said, "What's your problem?" She goes, "I've got a cramp in my hamstring." And he said, "Well, what do you reckon's brought that on?" She goes, it's probably the marathon running." He goes, "How about you stop it?" And she said, "How about I get a new doctor?" Because she said, "You just got to go, not give up." And
Yep.
because it is physical, it can be cured. And yeah, you're going to have more of them, more niggles, but you've just got to go with people who get you. And she said she's now got a doctor and a massage therapist who their whole mission is keep her going for as long as possible, right? So she's like their case study. You think we're good? Check out, we've got her going, right? And so she said they're the kind of people you need around you, because there's so many people who go, "Oh, don't do that or stop that. If it hurts, stop it." And I had a bunch of doctors tell me stop cycling when I had a couple of issues. Like, "Well, if it's hurting you when you cycle, you should stop cycling." I'm going, "Yeah, it's not kind of the answer I was looking for. Let's get a bit more proactive about this." And I'm sure you've had similar things that it's important to have the right people.
I love that story, Rob. And yes is the answer to that. I've got a team.
Yeah,
When you actually, I've never really, I stopped and thought about it the other day, and it's like, yeah, coach, strength coach, masseuse, osteo, um, and you forget how much goes into it.
yeah, yeah,
Nutrition, all of that type of stuff. And yeah, I definitely, I know that I have limited myself, and I probably still do in many other aspects. And this is one of those where when you hit a wall, you go, okay, am I going through it, around it, over it? What needs to change? What needs to happen?
right.
Um, and Robert, as we were talking just before we started this, I'm in one of those right now, COVID in January, and I just haven't recovered.
Yeah,
And for
yeah,
the time in 5 years, I haven't been able to train in the last 3 months.
right.
And it is mucking
It's
around with me
it's
mentally,
quite
man. I don't mind
brutal.
telling you.
Long, what they
Yeah,
call long COVID, or that kind of you just have this stagnation or this lethargy. You're kind of
yeah,
lethargic. Yes, that's
yeah,
fairly words for it, but I know what you're getting at, and it does.
yeah.
It can take that long too, which is scary.
It's really hitting me mentally now, right? I
Yeah.
don't have I don't have the running to fall back, which is part of one of the things that I do to self-soothe or to
Yes.
meditate or to journal, and running's my thing,
Yeah.
right? And so mentally I'm having to I'm struggling and having to find different ways to manage just the life stress and the outlet through other ways than running. But I'm making appointments with doctors and specialists and reading and research. I'm going, I want to and will find a way through this,
Yeah.
because I got to get back to one of the things that I love doing.
Yeah, and I think you're
So
right
it's
though,
just,
because the only thing I can tell you is talking to GPs, is that long COVID is a thing, and they're still
mm,
finding out stuff, and so you literally. I gave up reading on the internet about this. I can tell you, because it's not current enough, and what you're finding is the good GPs are actually going to conferences, and they're literally coming back and they're finding newer things. So you just got to go back to them and go, "What do you know now?" Because what they knew a year ago is very different than what they know now. And so the treatment's very different. So, I know you won't give up. I know you'll pursue and get this back, because you've got to get back to where you were, and you'll get there. You're a fit guy anyway. You're super strong. So you'll bounce it for sure. So we're just a bit out of time. What are some social media things? What's your Instagram? Some stuff that people can find out a bit more about Mark Zaglas.
yeah, I think that the two, Instagram,
Yeah.
Mark Zaglas, Zaglas, you'll find my running and photography on that.
Yeah. Great photography,
Um,
everybody. Great photography. You did such a great job.
and yes, I do. stop along the way and take photos when I run, but it's on the iPhone, not the big camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Zaglas on LinkedIn for my business.
Yeah, Mark, thanks so much for chatting today. It's been really good, very insightful, and thanks for digging deep as well. You went some great places and took us on a journey. I really do appreciate it. So thanks, and all the best for your recovery.
Likewise, Rob, I appreciate the opportunity, man, and your questions took me to some of those places. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, mate. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the It's All Possible podcast. You can contact me at rob@robhartnett.com or my website, robhartnett.com, or on LinkedIn. Remember to check out the previous seasons and episodes of the podcast and the show notes for more details on this episode's guest. For more inspiration, remember to check out the It's All Possibility playlist on Spotify, which contains a collection of upbeat, positive music I use for inspiration in my live performances. Until next time, live with passion and a perspective of possibility.